Good. I think we figured out how to get this. I don't know how.
It says that it's streaming, so if you're good to start, I'm good with you, buddy.
Okay. Hello, football fans, and welcome to a good special live stream of the Big Deep podcast.
To start, I'm good with you, buddy.
Okay. Hello, football fans, and welcome to a.
Sounds like if you have the stream open on your computer, you should probably mute it this way we don't because we're playing over each other.
Yeah, I just figured out. And I've never done a YouTube live. I've never done.
Like if you have the stream open on your computer, you should probably mute it this way.
Maybe I should just get rid of. Maybe I should just get rid of the stream. Okay, I think we got everything fixed now. So
Sounds
welcome
good.
to my first YouTube live stream, and before we really begin the discussion, anybody, welcome to my YouTube page. If you're liking what you're seeing, just hit the thumbs up button, and if you're really liking, please subscribe, like, share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page, where you never know who, what, or what will appear, or what the discussion will be in a particular day. So, on the line from one of my favorite places, Long Island, is fantasy football redraft nerd Matthew McCarthy. Matt, how's it feel to be my first YouTube live guest?
It feels good. Trust me, I've had technical problems before, so we had it for a quick second there. It's totally fine with me. I'm very pleased. Trust me, when you messaged me saying you wanted me to come on, I was very honored. I'm always ready to talk football with anyone, anywhere, really. So Dylan, I really appreciate having me on for sure.
Well, it's interesting that you're on because Matt and I are in a couple leagues together. In fact, one league that its draft is taking place right now, and guess who's on the clock right now?
It's not me, I know that. I can make sure beforehand.
So let's see, if there's two of us and you're not on the clock, then it must be me, right? And Matt and I are in a 2 leagues. One of them is a 12-team best ball league, and then we've got another 12-team redraft league that we are in the fourth round, and I'm on the clock. Matt's first four picks were Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift, and Julio Jones. And my first four picks were Tyreek Hill, Cheetah, Josh Allen, and David Montgomery. So, Matt, if you were a betting man, where do you think I'm going with the next pick?
I mean, if you want to get one of each, you can get a tight end if you like. And, Mark Andrews is on there, Hawkinson, but, it depends on which spot you're going to shore up. You have an advantage here now with quarterback. So I hope it's not a quarterback. You only need to start at one. So really, it should be a running back, receiver, or a tight end. Depends on where you want to really go. You have some flexibility here for sure.
I'm glad you mentioned TJ Hawkinson because he is off the board. That is a live fantasy football pick. I know you can't see it, but I have selected TJ Hawkinson. So I've gone Tyreek Hill, Josh Allen, David Montgomery, and TJ Hawkinson with my first four picks.
It's all about balance. That is a very balanced team. So I actually do like the pick we saw a lot. It's four tight ends went through the first three rounds. So getting Hawkinson where you did get him compared to the rest of the board is pretty good, actually.
I mean, be honest, I was actually a little worried when I saw those tight ends go round two, round three, because Kelsey went 1-6, and I'm like, that gummit, I wanted him 1-8.
You got another Kansas City Chief, though. So you do pick up with the Chiefs, which, again, is probably the best team for football for fantasy purposes right now. So I think
well, yeah. Cheetah 1-8 was my backup plan. And then, of course, in the second round, Patrick Mahomes was going to be my quarterback, and the person in front of me nabbed him, and I'm thinking, oh, crap, all the quarterbacks are going to go. So then I'm thinking, if I can't get Mahomes, which young QB do I want? Josh Allen.
He's a good he's a good player there. It would have been really good to have the Hill Mahomes stack. So it's unfortunate you couldn't pull that off. But Josh Allen, really just as good a player. There's a lot of QBs right now. That 1, 2, 3, there's really 6 guys I like a lot this year, but Josh Allen's up near the top for sure.
Let me see if I could get those 6 quarterbacks. Mahomes,
Oh yeah, that's one.
Josh Allen,
Got 2.
uh, Justin Herbert,
No, he's up there for me. He's gonna be my QB 8, but I do like Herbert quite a bit.
Kyler.
Yes, Kyler Murray's quarterback 5.
Would Aaron Mr. Jeopardy Rogers appear?
No. See, he's at quarterback 7. I think Aaron Rodgers has a chance to be really up this year, but this young group, we have a lot of guys towards the top who both run and pass, and Rodgers is possibly on another, try to light the world on fire like he had in his MVP season last year. But Aaron Rodgers knows my QB 7 right now for redraft.
Let me guess. Lamar.
Yes, Lamar Jackson. He's gonna be number 4.
Let me guess. So
we need 2 more.
Baker?
No, not Baker Mayfield.
I'm kidding. Kidding. One of them's going to be obvious. Too obvious. Russ?
Yes, Russ Wilson is number 6. So you're missing my number 2 quarterback right now that I have ranked.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, this one's going to... What division am I missing?
He's in the NFC. I can say that.
Oh, gosh. NFC.
He's in the NFC, and he's in the NFC East.
Oh, Dak.
Yes, Dak Prescott. I am a big fan of the Cowboys. Outside the Kansas City Chiefs, who have 4 players currently being drafted in the top 50 picks. Dallas Cowboys, the other team that are currently going so high. I'm a really big fan of what those Cowboys can do this year for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, the Cowboys might not be a great team in person, but they could sure rack up points. I mean,
yes, that's all I care about.
Be honest with you, this year, CeeDee Lamb's one of my favorite redraft and dynasty players.
Oh, for sure. Him and Amari Cooper, that's one of the best 1-2 punches I think at receiver that any team really has in the league. Outside of maybe what Kansas City has with, Travis Kelce and, and like your pick, Tyreek Hill, if you consider, Kelce receiver, which he honestly should be, if he was probably the fantasy MVP, really with the points he put up last year.
Yeah, I think Kelce was like the number 2 receiver in terms of yards last year.
Yeah, he was excellent.
He didn't even play week 17.
He doesn't need to. Does not need to, that's for sure.
Yeah, so tell us your strategy with the running backs, because obviously in most fantasy leagues, everybody likes to get a running back early, but you went running back.
I did. So in this league, I say Saquon Barkley at 12. I have him actually as the 5th overall player for redraft. I think that the injury concern is a little overblown. I currently believe, and what I've seen from medical experts on Twitter and the fantasy world at large, that he should play week 1. Will he play 100%? Probably not. But if I can have him past week 1 into week 2, 3, 4, 5, that's really what I can't, really care about. I think he dropped a little bit also. This is full PPR. The best thing that we saw from that, his first season in his rookie year was not just his rushing ability, but his ability to garner a ton of targets. He had over 100 in his first year, around 90 receptions. That's something that should really not be understated. So between him, Nick Chubb, who I think is a very safe play, not as high upside as I think of the guys who are going to catch passes. But Nick Chubb, I think if he's ever let loose over there in Cleveland, could really be the best runner in the NFL. It's really between him and Derrick Henry. And then DeAndre Swift. Just with Saquon Barkley, another player that I like for the receiving game purposes. I think he's going to probably be the most targeted player that Detroit currently has. They don't have a very good receiving core. And I do like T.J. Hawkinson, probably be the second best overall receiver on that team. But DeAndre Swift, I really like a lot in full PPR, and I like where I got him at that turn in round 3. With Julio Jones, the package in there to get my number 1 receiver. I like this 3 running back start. I think you kind of have to do it at the turn here. I preferred Chubb to the receiver, but Stephon Diggs was very close as well. He went right 1 pick after me.
Be honest with you, in round 3 was, I considered taking Swift there, but I'm like, Montgomery's safer, and yeah, he's not a sexy PPR guy, but He's the goal line back there. I'm not sure what Tyreek Cohen will be coming off the torn ACL. And be honest with you, I don't know what the Bears are going to do with Andy Dalton or Justin Fields. Just give me all the David Montgomery.
Yeah, and Dave Montgomery is actually the most used running back in 2020. He played 71% of the running back snaps for Chicago. He did so because they had a very, depleted running back room. I don't know how it's going to change this year with Tariq Cohen technically active. And they added Damian Williams, who didn't play any of 2020 for the Kansas City Chiefs. Bring him in. He might be able to, supplant either Montgomery or Cohen on the field. Montgomery is a very good running back. I think he was a little bit overvalued coming out of 2020 because he was used so heavily and he had around, fourth in receptions in the NFL at running back. I like him a lot. I do like him a lot. I think, where you took him, I think it's appropriate if you value him over some of the other players. So it's definitely not any sort of reach there with Montgomery in the third round. I think you'd had a good pick.
Be honest with you, I didn't even really consider taking Chris Carlson there because last year I took Carlson in the third round and, well, it didn't go well. In fact, my first three picks in my fantasy league last year were Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, and I think Chris Carlson.
That's still
made the playoffs.
That's good. That's great because that's a really rough start for 2020 purposes.
I could think of a rougher start. Saquon Barkley, Julio Jones, and then trying to think would it be Carlson? Could you do one Wolves?
From the 2020, they said Saquon Barkley, and between him and McCaffrey and Elliott struggled. There was a really bad start for the game. You could have gotten Miles Sanders in round 3, who was also kind of a disappointment. George Kittle, who got hurt for most of the year.
Oh yeah, Kittle wouldn't be.
Yeah, and George Kittle was a very common third round pick, and he did not successfully work out, unfortunately.
Yeah, were there any picks that surprised you in all league? Because if you ask me, I think there were a couple that sort of surprised me. I mean, do you say Aaron Jones may have been a little early at 1-7?
Aaron Jones actually liked quite a bit. I think with him moving into more receiving possibilities, with Jamal Williams leaving, I think both him and Devontae Adams are first-round picks. I would take Adams over Jones. I'd take Saquon Barkley over Jones. But I think Aaron Jones is a first-round pick. I think it's just the ordering, which is not really a problem. If you prefer and value certain players over another, I think, once you get to a certain spot, it's really just kind of making your claim. All the players that I really saw go in our first round were really players, that's guys like McCaffrey, Cook, Elliott, Kamara, of course, but, Kelsey and Jonathan Taylor and Devontae Adams, it's really, who are guys going to mix in and out of the first, second rounds. And I think they're all appropriate picks. I do know that Bo McBigtime is a good friend of mine. Makes all the big time flavor hot sauce and all that. Kyle Pitts, he's a guy who's really really in on Kyle Pitts. So take him in the third round. I've done a few drafts with him. He is going to do that. I'm a little bit more gun shy on Pitts, but if Kyle Pitts really nails it and he really has this great big rookie season, then guys like Bo, who's really going out and valuing Kyle Pitts as such, he's going to be ahead of the curve and he's getting him in the right position where I'm possibly, undervaluing him.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts to me, it's a real interesting player because in regular fantasy, he's probably overdrafted in some ways, but in a redraft or a dynasty league, third round, I mean, you probably couldn't wait until the fourth round because there are really only 5 or 6 quality tight ends, so it makes sense.
And that's really the thing. There's a kind of a drop off after Hawkinson or Andrews or Pitts, whichever is your tight end 6. Past that point, my tight end 7, who's Jonnu Smith currently.
Oh gosh!
See, so this is the thing, right? So Jonnu Smith, I was very much just like you. I was not a believer in him. I actually ranked Jonnu Smith at one point in this offseason at tight end 20.
What? Wait a minute, 20?
Yes. At one point he was my tight end 20, and now he's my tight end 7. So it really goes into a matter.
And I know why, because you think the Patriots are going to use him in the red zone like he was in Nashville.
Not only that, I think they're going to be using him as their primary receiving option. So they're paying him currently $50 million, which is the same prorated contract that he's getting for 4 years, like Hunter Henry is for 3 years, right? but he's currently the third most expensive paid tight end in the league, only trailing behind Travis Kelce and George Kittle. They brought him in, and I believe Hunter Henry as well, to mirror their 2011 New England Patriots offense, which had their primary options being Aaron Hernandez and and Gronkowski. Obviously, you had, Wes Welker out there as well, who was a very dominant receiver. So it's a very much different story because, Gronk and Hernandez were top 5 tight ends, Gronk being the number 1 tight end. But with Smith, he's my tight end 7, but there's a drop off in terms of like 3-4 rounds between what Hawkinson is being drafted for me to like Jonnu Smith. So even though he's my tight end 7, the evaluation of those players are nowhere near each other.
I mean, be honest with you, I would have taken Jonnu Smith before around probably 7 or 8.
Oh, yeah, no, trust me. And I agree. That's entirely correct. Even with him being my tight end 7, it doesn't mean that I think he should be taken anywhere near these guys. When you take the first 6 tight ends, and especially the top 3, I think you're really making a statement to how you're really structuring your team, right? Past those first 6, now you're going into what's the best of the rest sort of guys. So, guys like Dallas Goedert, who Zach Ertz is still around, Noah Fant, who's in a very crowded Denver, offense. We have
Tyler
Higbee, who had a very good stretch for 4 games in 2019. And I do think that team's going to pass a little bit more now with the injury situation that happened with Cam Akers. And we've seen before that it could take just players moving around for players to really step into better roles. And Higbee shined at the end of 2019 and then disappointed all of us in 2020. But, I'm seeing Rob Gronkowski go ahead of Jonnu Smith in places. And I think Rob Gronkowski is very much on his last legs. So it's really an evaluation who you think is the next best guy. And for me currently with the research that I did, I believe it's Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the fact
I did a whole write-up for it. Yeah. Over on gridironratings.com, if you go into the redraft articles, I got a whole write-up for it comparing the 2011 New England Patriots to the 2021 possible Patriots and seeing because again, same coach. This is Belichick's design. He's the GM, he's the head coach, and he wants this team, I think, to operate in the better ways that he did in the past. Now, there's no Wes Welker type receiver. I think they're going to have to mix guys in, but I'm also not stating that Jonnu Smith should be the number 1 tight end in fantasy. I think he's a very good value where he's going, and he's one of my favorite picks, I think, this year in fantasy.
Who do you think started in New England this year? Because if you ask me, I'm not 100%. I think Max starts, but both of them could play. You could see a situation where maybe Cam's in the red zone because nobody can tackle him in the end.
I wouldn't want to. I'll tell you, I'm 6'2", and I don't want to get anywhere near that guy. It's a big man.
6'3".
Yeah, I was saying we're big guys, and I don't want to. Yeah, we don't want to go anywhere near Cam Newton. He's huge. So here's the thing with Mac Jones. Very early on in the preseason, I was like, I wanted nothing to do with Mac Jones. I thought he was a bad pick by New England. He's looked really good in the preseason. He looks good under center. Cam Newton, I think, is going to be losing his job, if not has lost his job already. Between him and Zach Wilson, this rookie quarterback class, we understand Justin Fields, Trey Lance. For some reason, Lawrence has been kind of, downplayed to these other players over in Jacksonville. It's probably because of Jacksonville Jaguars, but this rookie.
Okay. I beg your pardon. It might be a crappy offensive line, but did you see what he did on Sunday against the Wolflets Cowboy defense?
I'd like to say that here's the thing. I like Trevor Lawrence. I think he is the best quarterback prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck. The problem is that he kind of stepped into a possible not as, fantasy rich environment that some of the other players might have stepped into. So if he can play to the form that we hope he does, I'm all about him. It's just an issue of, are we going to see that Trevor Lawrence? And I do like him quite a bit. And this whole rookie class, I'm really excited for.
So, but from a rookie quarterback standpoint, obviously Lawrence is the top guy, but how early would you consider them in a redraft or dynasty league? Because I think in a dynasty league, Lawrence and Trey Lance would be going early and often for me.
Yeah, so Dynasty is not my focus. So I'm a redraft analyst. I'm the senior redraft analyst over at Gridiron Ratings. That's my primary focus. Dynasty, I'm more of a fan of than I am an analyst. So I try not to give too much analysis because I usually balk. That's other people who will really dive into it because I just don't want to give out the incorrect information. But Trevor Lawrence and, all these guys who have, possible prospect to really play well into the future, and they're all looking like quality guys. They should be going very early. But in terms of for redraft purposes, I don't think any of them currently are top 12 options. They shouldn't be drafted in one quarterback leagues. You're only drafting them. You're not drafting as starters. You're drafting them as either as high upside late round picks, or if Lance starts week 1, which I don't think is, he'd probably be the only quarterback that pops up in my top 12. Justin Fields, I'm a little worried about the very tough schedule he has to undertake, which is just a fantasy concern of mine. And Lawrence, I currently don't have as a top 50. He's right outside that, around 16 or 17. But, it's really just a tough, packed group. So if you want to draft them in one quarterback leagues with, rounds 12 through 15, if it's a 15-round draft, I have no problems with that. If you're looking for upside, I prefer this year drafting, if my receiving core is settled out by that point, I'd rather draft one of these rookie quarterbacks than I did really any of these, real receivers in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I'd rather have my receiving core packed with guys who I think are going to start every single week for me in my fantasy lineups, and I never really have to change them out. I think that's a better way to really go about it.
What if they're in like a 2-quarterback league or like a super flex league where where it's more quarterback dependent? Because I did 2 best ball drafts in one. I went quarterback in the first round and quarterback in the fourth round, but then got Trey Lance in the 7th round of both drafts.
So yeah, it's going to be a little bit different because in Superflex, you're going to have, I'm looking at one of the Superflex leagues I just drafted a few days ago. I think that's the one that was with you. And, in the first round in that, you had, 8 quarterbacks. You're going to see 12 guys go in the first 2 rounds, right? So you're going to see Lawrence most likely pop up of the rookie QBs by round 4 or 5. And then the rest are going to fill in because right now you can't really start them as your second quarterback, because week 1, they're not going to be out there. If you want to say Justin Fields might have a good chance to go on there week 2, but Trey Lance, we technically don't know when that's going to happen. Zach Wilson is a confirmed week 1 starter. Mac Jones is not the confirmed week 1 starter. So we have like kind of half of that group. We know what their role is and when they're going to go out there. And the other half might be soon or never in Trey Lance's possibility.
Wait a minute. Let me see if I can get that. Wait, I don't think. No, that's actually the other league. I don't think.
Because I do have the one you're talking about, the one that we drafted together. The one you drafted Mahomes first overall. I do have that league results up. So I said, in that league, you drafted the rookies. You drafted Trevor Lawrence in the 4th round, and you drafted Trey Lance in the 7th. So that's a good way to go about, because you have a lot of young gun talent there between Mahomes, who's best quarterback in football, and you have Lawrence and Lance. So you don't need to start Lance, but he has really high upside as your 3rd guy, and that's really the way to go. Like for me, I went with Aaron Rodgers early because it's the system in that it really favors Rodgers a lot. And then I waited for Jameis Winston, who was kind of a risk at the time because he wasn't actually starting, and then just backfilled with Bridgewater and Taysom Hill just to lock down the New Orleans Saints. So a little bit different story. I also have Deshaun Watson, but I think at that point in the draft, it was 16 rounds in, and if he ever plays this year, fine. I don't think he does. I really don't. But there wasn't really better picks on the board at that exact moment for me. So I was just like, all right, sure, Deshaun Watson, why not? My QBs are not particularly great anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure you heard the Watson news, but I don't think he's playing in Houston this year.
No, I don't think so either.
Whether he's on the inactive list or the NFL puts him on the inactive list.
Yeah, no, trust me, I agree. It was just a matter of, because my quarterbacks were so bad, I don't think he plays either, but there wasn't really a quarterback on the board at that moment that was really worth anything anyway. And I wasn't really excited with any other picks. And since it's a best ball format, so I can always, and there's also ad drops. And so I can always drop them and it doesn't really matter to me. I just pick up a receiver. I could have drafted in that spot, no matter what. But in that, I really focused on running backs and receivers early. And those receivers, I only took 4 in that entire draft: DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, and Brandon Ayuk. And I'm never going to really take another receiver because I'm really just want those 4 guys to really just be my receivers and then never have to care about that position. It's just those guys. And it's really just a strategy of mine that I've been employing in my fantasy leagues, which is take care of receiver early and then just never have to look at, because the back end receivers, a wide receiver 50 might end up as like a wide receiver 40 or wide receiver 30 to end the year in like total points or points per game. A running back in that group or a tight end and a quarterback, really any of the guys who be really valuable off of waivers are really the guys I'm prioritizing later in my drafts for sure.
Yeah, I just pulled up the draft results. You went Rodgers, Ezekiel Elliott, DeAndre Hopkins, Allen Cooper, and I went Mahomes, Eckler, Diggs, Lawrence, and TJ Hawkinson. So I've gone more. So you've gone more of the. I want the star wide receivers. I want a balance team.
Yes, you want balance in both of them. You know that one just very similar to the draft you just had. You have one surefire guy in every single slot. Eckler, I love as a top 6 overall pick for me in redraft. Stephon Diggs, I think, is the second best receiver currently in fantasy. Mahomes is my QB1. Hawkinson's a top 6 guy. I love your team for sure through those first picks. Even pick 6, I like Myles Gaskin a lot. Myles Gaskin, there was a concern about him being a committee, which I think was quite overblown. Myles Gaskin, I think, is going to be a lot of fun this year. He had 2 touchdowns against the Falcons in that preseason game. It shows that he can really do all the things they require of him. I like Gaskin quite a bit.
Yeah, then I went Lance and Jamal Chase. Now, I mean, I don't know what to make of Chase in preseason because I love his athleticism. I think he's got all the potential in the world. This guy brings so much speed, so much height, so much strength. But the problem is he hasn't played a game in 2 years, or at
Yeah,
least a year and a half.
yeah, and he has a little bit of a case of the dropsies. So
Tiki
which
Ball, Tiki Barber got the fumbleitis when he came out of college. He was okay.
And that's the thing. I agree with you. I think it's a little overblown right now as to these preseason drops. They're looking for him. They're targeting him. That's important to me. He's a rookie. He's a very rusty rookie, but he's a rookie with all the potential in the world. So am I a Jamar Chase believer in terms of where I'm going for fantasy compared to other players? Possibly not, because I prefer really what they're going to be looking at with Mixon and Boyd. Because here's the issue, right? If Cincinnati technically can't protect Joe Burrow well, and they're having issues getting the ball downfield, for some reason, people are prioritizing Higgins and Chase over Boyd and Mixon. Mixon also go a little bit because he's a running back. But Boyd, these are all guys, those two are going to be operating underneath 8 yards of average depth for Boyd, and then Mixon's going to be working out of the backfield. If they can't get the ball out of Burrow's hands quick enough or protect him long enough to get the ball downfield for Chase or Higgins, I think that's the only spot where he might go into a little bit of trouble in terms of the overall football sense of what this team's going to do. Because everyone's a little worried about the offensive line. They're a little worried about Joe Burrow's knee, but then they're not worried about the overall potential of Chase or Higgins when those guys need longer time for those plays to develop if they're going further downfield. Around like 13 average depths of target per yards for those two receivers compared to Boyd and Mixon, who are much closer to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and in a way, my Cincinnati have been better off taking the Oregon renewal for.
Sewell, the
Penei
lineman.
Slater in the draft because I think Jamal Chase may be a better maybe a more exciting football player, but with the quarterback coming off the 20 ACL, the Bengals might have been better off giving Burrow's knees some help.
And that's really the issue is going to be, can he really be upright enough? Because he was already taking a lot of hits last year. How much can he really push the ball downfield and have time to do so? And if he's playing scared in practice, the one thing I've seen people do is that they're very worried when players try to hinder themselves to not try and re-injure something, or they're scared of re-injuring, because then they put themselves in weird positions to try and protect those parts of their body, which possibly leads to further injury in other aspects. So I'm just a little worried if Burrow is going to possibly get injured in another sort of sense. Not saying that's any guarantee to happen, but I'm not really comfortable seeing that he is playing a little bit scared. That's more about Joe Burrow than is Chase. I like Chase quite a bit. I think people are just freaking out over the drops because it's preseason and it's a very high profile rookie. I think that's a real issue with him. Not anything to do football wise in terms of his actual talent. It's just more of a matter. We have nothing else to talk about. So we're going to try and just really nitpick any single thing we can with him. Not me personally, but the Twitter sphere at large.
Yeah. And plus, if you're Joe Burrow, being an Ohio guy, he's supposed to carry the franchise. And if he gets sting, the Bengals are in trouble.
Yeah, that's really the thing. We saw that last year when he went down. That was basically the end of their season. They weren't performing very well to begin with, but offensively, they were in a very good spot, and it changes the overall dynamic of this team. It really does for a lot of teams. If your starting quarterback goes down, it's kind of a death sentence to your season. That's why, rookie, quarterbacks or backup quarterbacks, there's really just a measure to try and make these teams a little bit deeper. We go and see the Philadelphia Eagles go make the trade for Gardner Minshew because he's possibly one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league, and they got him for like a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, I wonder if that's because he'll be the backup, or if maybe they want somebody to challenge Hurts, because I'm not liking what I'm hearing from Philly.
I wasn't a big Hurts believer in my own regard. I have him as my QB 12. I think it's just a matter of how good that overall offense is going to be. He does run, and running is very important in fantasy, but then he also needs to be a good enough passer, which I don't think he's very accurate at doing currently. Is Gardner Minshew going to overall affect Hurts that much? I don't believe so. But Gardner Minshew is a very, very good backup quarterback. I still think that is what he is, though, a backup quarterback. I like that he stepped into a spot with Nick Foles, and he wasn't really supposed to be, the starter last year for 2020. And it ended up being a 1-15 season. So we got kind of what we, paid for. But with Minshew, I do like him, but Jalen Hurts is technically their guy of the future at the current moment. Let's see how long that technically lasts for.
That's until the Eagles go 2-15, and then they're drafting Spencer Rattler, the kid from North Carolina.
That's true. That is the hot topic at QB is going to be who's going to have Rattler next year.
And hey, maybe a team close to your area, the Giants might be in the quarterback market, because I don't know if you saw the preseason game on Friday night, but the Giants' offensive line couldn't protect Daniel Jones.
Yeah, it's a very big question in terms of what is the overall quality of this New York Giants team. When I looked at the overall, top to bottom defense and offense, this is a team I thought can compete. It's just a problem that the New York Giants just kind of find ways to lose football games and kind of find ways to make themselves look kind of gross. As bad interception that was possibly in the end zone that Daniel Jones threw, which is very strange. He was rolling out to his right, and his momentum is taken to the sideline. And there's a linebacker standing basically right in front of him. He throws past the linebacker, past his own man he's throwing to his safety in the back of the end zone, which was actually, I thought he broke physics to really get that ball to that safety. Because I really would have thought it would have been picked off by the guy completely staring him down. He finds a way to throw interceptions. We also find ways to really make touchdowns happen as well. Because a really nice pass, over the defender to his player in the spot that only he could get it. So as bad a pass that interception was, as good a pass that very long completion was as well, a little bit later in the game.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, if Daniel Jones doesn't perform well this year, could the Giants be looking at one of those guys?
Possibly. I mean, it's going to be really, at current moment, the odds-on favorites to be some of the worst teams in the league are most likely, the Houston Texans, the Detroit Lions. Unfortunately, the Jacksonville Jaguars are down there as well. It's going to be some tough sledding possibly for a few of these squads. I'm trying to really look who's really can even compete with those for possible worst offenses or worst teams in the league. Because really I think there's a lot of
Philly.
Philadelphia, yes, that is another one. Yeah, Philly is in a tough spot because I think there's a lot of quality teams. Atlanta might be in a very transitional phase, so they might go 5-12, but I don't think they're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 wins. There's going to be teams that are going to fall off. In terms of just something's going to happen. Someone's going to get hurt. There's going to be bad schedule. The Chicago Bears can find themselves in a bad spot as well. I think they have a very tough schedule for this year. I understand the reason why they don't want to have Fields run out there in week 1. It's mostly because they have to go against the Rams in LA. But then they got to play the Cleveland Browns in week 3, the Green Bay Packers in week 6, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 7, the 49ers, the Steelers, the Ravens. This whole stretch here is bad. In 5 straight games, I don't have the buys mixed in, but in 5 straight opponents, they have the Packers, Bucks, Niners, Steelers, and the Ravens. Those are 5 teams that could possibly be playing in the playoffs this year. And those are 4 teams that had records of 11-5 or better in 2020. And just in terms of fantasy points allows to quarterbacks, four of those teams outside the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Packers, the 49ers, the Steelers, and the Ravens were all top 10 in not allowing quarterbacks to score fantasy points. These were tough matchups for quarterbacks. I don't know how confident I am in Justin Fields just based on this very tough schedule, because if you look at those first, 10 opponents or so, there's 7 that I wouldn't want him to play against. The 3 that are good, the Lions, the Bengals, and the Raiders. The Raiders are kind of like middle of the pack. They're going to be, plus to neutral matchups, but the rest are definitely negative, not in any sort of favor of Justin Fields. I think it's a very big issue for, how quickly he's going to get out there. He's a very dynamic player, which is why Andy Dalton, I think, should be out of there sooner rather than later. But he's still stepping into a spot where I think it's not great for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, maybe the media would like Justin Fields playing, but the head coach may feel a baptism by fire might be the wrong way to throw this kid in the fire.
That's really the problem, is that he's probably the correct player to start for Chicago. But I also don't want to draft him in one quarterback leagues, because really right now it's just a matter of what's the overall upside of what Fields can be. And unfortunately, with this very tough schedule, and again, things can change very rapidly. These defenses going into the year can be very different by week 4, 5, or 6. But right now, I look at the schedule and I say, this is not a very appealing schedule. At least the one thing I can say with Andy Dalton is that he's preferred to really just throw to one guy over and over and over again. We saw them doing it for years with AJ Green over in Cincinnati. So for Allen Robinson's purposes, I have no problem with Andy Dalton under center. I think he's going to probably pepper Allen Robinson with targets. But Justin Fields, there's no guarantee he's going to do anything of the sort. Between Darnell Mooney and whoever they're going to run out with the running backs between Montgomery and the 2 receiving possibilities between, Damian Williams and Tariq Cohen, there's possibilities that Fields doesn't favor, even Cole Kmet's over there. Also, a million other tight ends, but Cole Kmet, there's no real possibility that he favors, having Allen Robinson be a primary target week in, week out. So it's just be a little bit of flux going into the 2021 season for Chicago for sure.
So I think it's time we answer the interesting question. What's the difference between a redraft league and a regular fantasy football league? Because I have never done redraft leagues.
So redraft is actually regular football. So redraft purposes are you're going to be drafting a new league every single year. So dynasty is or keepers or when you're going to be carrying a team over or certain players over. Redraft is just the word used for regular. Regular is redraft. There is no difference in there. So I know it is a little confusing for some people where it's like, because when they just play fantasy football, they're like, oh yeah, let's go have a fantasy football league with your friends or your coworkers or any of that, or random people over the internet like you and I are doing. Redraft is a 1 year. That team you have is the team you have for that season. And then in 2022, you'll be drafting a completely new team. And that's my
non-keepers, no keepers.
No keepers. And a keeper league it's still redraft in a certain possibility. You're just carrying over, partially your team. But dynasty is a completely different story where you're carrying over your entire team. And there's other, formats, for redraft leagues, there's one quarterback, there's tight end premium, which is where tight ends get more points instead of to try and get them a little more in line with the other players. 2 quarterback leagues, when you start multiple quarterbacks, or super flex league, where you have a flex position where it can be any position, quarterback, running back, receiver, or tight end. Mostly people put, quarterbacks in that spot, but it could be anyone. There's guillotine leagues where every week one team gets knocked out and everyone can kind of feast on their players like buzzards. I know Paul Charchin is really the inventor of that. I follow him over on Twitter. But there's, multiple different formats. Auction, I did a blind auction, which was very weird, didn't go very well, but regular auction leagues as well. And then they'll typically follow a redraft format after that as well.
Yeah, so who have you been your favorite players to target at every position, starting with quarterback?
So I've been going very outside of, in years past, I would really not go for the top 6 quarterbacks or try and take a quarterback early. But Dak Prescott that's been my guy. There's been really 3 teams that I want as many guys as I can possibly have: the Dallas Cowboys, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the San Francisco 49ers. I really like those offenses, and the valuation of those players are going to be in different sort of spots. But Dak Prescott, if I'm going to pay up, I think he's the one I really prefer. He's my QB2 with a good reason. When they were playing in 2020, for the first 6 weeks of the season, 4 of those games that Dak started, they ran 80 plays or more, which would have led the NFL if they can continue that pace. They finished second in plays per game, only behind the LA Chargers. 2 teams that are playing very fast. They're playing a lot of snaps per game, and they're getting a lot of offense. That equals fantasy points. The more opportunities you have to score points, the more opportunities I have to be happy. So I like Dak Prescott quite a bit. If I'm going a little bit later in drafts, I do like Justin Herbert as well. Again, LA Chargers. Matthew Stafford is I'm a big fan of. And if I'm going really late, if he falls, because some people evaluate him a little bit more, Ryan Tannehill, I think he's one of the safest picks at quarterback right now. And then if we're looking super flex, or you want to get a quarterback super late in other regards, I understand that Trey Lance, is very exciting, but Jimmy Garoppolo, if he is going to be playing a possibility of the entire season, because they're not going to run Lance out. They don't have really reason to run Lance out there, because I think it's going to be a competitive football team without him. In 2 quarterback and super flex leagues, I am getting a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm getting a lot of Ben Roethlisberger. I do like those offenses quite a bit.
Interesting you mentioned Jimmy G and Big Ben because Trey Lance's name's coming off the books early and often, seemingly. I don't mean a first, second round, but like middle, late of most drafts.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really just an idea to mind that I think Jimmy G, it's a guy we have to look at. San Francisco 2 seasons ago was a Super Bowl contending team. They were 13-3. They were one of the top offenses in the league. And Garoppolo was a near top 12 quarterback with having one of the lowest pass attempts in the league. He was like bottom 5 for players who had started 15 games or more. It still turned in a near top 12 season. If Garoppolo stays healthy, he has a possibility to lead this team the entire year. They were just decimated on both sides of the ball quite a bit last year and still able to compete in some regard. Outside of like Justin Fields in Chicago and on the other rookies in terms of, Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence, they have either easy paths to starting in Wilson and Lawrence, or Justin Fields. I believe in Chicago, Matt Nagy is playing for his job. He might have to have Fields out there because people are going to be very mad if they start losing and Fields is not under center. They want to see their prized rookie go out and do things. San Francisco, I don't know if they're going to be in a spot. They play in a very tough, division between LA and Arizona and Seattle. But that's a very good football team, a very, very good football team. And if Trey Lance starts week 1, excellent. But if he doesn't start week 1, there's a possibility he doesn't start at all this season unless Jimmy G gets hurt or really struggles. And currently, Trey Lance seems a little raw. He needs to kind of get his, accuracy under control. Can he go and throw the deep ball and do fantastic things? 100%. It's more just a matter of I really like San Francisco offense as a whole. They're really targeting Jimmy G in particular. It's really just very deep, doesn't have to be drafted in any sort of 1 QB format, but in Superflex, I like getting him.
And with Trey Lance dealing with that hand injury, he'll miss 4 or 5 key practices.
Yeah, it's got a little chip in his finger. I don't know if that was like he was just diving in the chip bowl, but something's going on with his finger there. So we'll see exactly what really happens, going forward. I don't know if that really pushes the needle more towards Jimmy G if they were leaning Trey Lance, but right now it's still to be seen. But I do like Jimmy G to start for the 49ers come week 1. Running back. So I've really been on again, I'm a full PPR guy or half PPR. I prefer receptions. Any of the players I can target that catch passes, I think that is the path to really pushing yourself into a better spot for fantasy purposes. Over the last 3 seasons, the top 3 fantasy points in per touch basis are all players who really, really prioritize their game around catching passes. Alvin Kamara has been the best player in a per touch basis over the last 3 years at 1.23 fantasy points per game. Right behind him is Austin Eckler at 1.19. I have him as my 6th overall player right now in redraft. And another player I like a lot is DeAndre Swift, who's also 1.19. Again, that was just a 1 season last year, but in a very, conservative role, not really getting the full workload. A guy that's getting a lot of possible receiving work over there in Detroit. Austin Eckler, I love what Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator for the LA Chargers, could possibly do with him. But even past him, Mike Davis in Atlanta, Travis Etienne before he got hurt was a guy I was looking at quite a bit, and Myles Gaskin. All these players can catch, 50 or more balls, and that matters a lot because we just saw a guy like David Montgomery have a very good season last year when he had 50 receptions. He had a good amount of rushing work, but receptions matter quite a bit in this format. So I like those guys quite a bit for me personally. And then like really late, like super like past, the early rounds or so. Damon Williams, I think in Chicago, if an injury happens to David Montgomery or Tariq Cohen, I think he can step into either of those roles. And James White in New England, he's going very late, and I think he still has a very carved out role there in New England. He's getting a little bit older, and he's not near what he used to be in terms of receiving wise. But in this format, I think you have to look at guys who can possibly catch 3 or 4 passes a week, and James White has the possibility to do so.
I mean, it seems like every 3rd and 2, James White always got 3 yards. It seemed like every time Tom Brady needed a 3rd and 2 that the tailback, James White would always get 3 yards.
Listen, he's been reliable for them. And I think, it was a very weird situation last year with Cam. I think if Mac Jones is under center, I think it helps James White quite a bit. Last year, the goal line back really was Cam Newton. He was the guy running it in. So it's going to be a little bit of a different story for them if James White is going to be out there, not just running the ball, but receiving, which is really his big thing.
Although I'm just saying this, an Alabama quarterback to an Alabama running back would be different in New England.
Listen, there's a little bit of familiarity there. They if that leads to chemistry, that's something they need, because New England was not a particularly good offense last year, but they've added a lot of new pieces between the tight ends. If Jacoby Myers can really step on, if Mac Jones is going to be a good thing, I think he's comfortable, and comfortability for a rookie matters a lot.
Yeah, I mean, look at what the Jaguars did, drafted 2 Clemson guys in the 1st round.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that Etienne got hurt, because I really liked him quite a bit. James Robinson steps into a better spot now. He's going to be my running back 17. It's a different story than, because, last season was just a lot of him. It was just, he had like 70% of the overall carries for this team. Around 41% of his work, though, came from in the receiving game. Etienne was for sure going to mix into that. Obviously, now we have no idea. We're going to have to see what that looks like in 2022. But it's a little sad, because I wanted Etienne to really come out in a big way and really showcase what he can do in year one.
Yeah, and somebody got and James went 4-2, so he was the 38th player in all leagues. 4th round. I don't think. Yeah, 4th rounds. 4th round's fine for him. I don't think he reached for him.
No, I think that is an appropriate spot. I think he's going to be going in that sort of range. ADP wise right now, he's going at pick 42, so that is in that round 3, round 4 range. So it's going to be, that's most likely where he's going to fit in.
Yeah, be honest with you, for a late round guy, I've done in my leagues. I've gone for Carlos Hyde, and who's the other guy in Baltimore? Not Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. Because in case anything happens with Robinson, Carlos Hyde get in there and maybe not be one.
Yeah, with there's also another name to know there over in Baltimore, though, besides Justice Hill, is Tyson Williams, who they are currently listing as their 2nd running back. Harbaugh likes him. Justice Hill has just not been able to showcase a lot. He only has like 72 carries over the last 2 seasons. He was a guy back in 2019 was being hyped up as the next big thing for Baltimore. Has not come to fruition. So it's just a matter of right now, is there enough past Edwards to really be excited for? At this point in the offseason, for a running back in a running back situation in flux, I have no problems taking the flyers on either of those guys. But it's mostly a situation where it's Edwards at a good value if I can get him, but I'm not really reaching for him. And I'm a big Edwards guy. And it's just so much of what Jackson does eats into who those running backs are going to be for the Baltimore Ravens.
Maybe it might be a situation like with the Chiefs where you get like Kelsey and Mahomes, you get Lamar and Gus Edwards, because if one of them scores a touchdown, well, so what?
It's just a matter of points in your lineup. I don't know how much Edwards is going to be a 14 points or more sort of guy. It feels like a guy that's going to be a very good player, but he's never going to set the world on fire week to week unless he has, the scores. So the weeks he scores a touchdown, you're happy. The weeks he doesn't, you're not. This backfield only has seen 101 targets over 2 seasons to their entire running back room. So it's not like PPR sort of points. You get any sort of bonus. Edwards is a very good runner. And that's kind of the short and the long of it. He's a very good runner, but who knows how much work he's going to get, because Lamar Jackson last year in 2020 was the primary handler inside the red zone. He had the most red zone carries between him, Dobbins, and Edwards, and they all got in the 20s and 30s for Jackson, especially. But Edwards did have 10 carries within the 5 yard line, which actually tied Dobbins' 10 within the 5 as well. So it's to be seen how much Edwards' red zone work is going to get. If he scores 10 touchdowns, then yeah, he's going to be very good. If he scores 5 to 7, it's going to be a little bit different story compared to what he's going to do because the other guys are just going to catch passes as well. So it's just going to be a little bit of a tough story.
Why now?
So receivers, like I said, receivers, I'm looking at guys early if I can because those guys are going to be confirmed points in your lineup. I'm very high on Keenan Allen, like I was with Austin Eckler. Transition. This is the guy, Joe Lombardi, offensive coordinator currently for the LA Chargers. He was the one-time quarterbacks coach over in New Orleans. Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara feel very much like Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. Just take that offensive system, implant it to a team that was playing very up pace in the LA Chargers. I like quite a bit. Going past him, like I said, the Dallas Cowboys guys I'm liking a lot. Deontay Johnson, currently my wide receiver 19. Listen, I understand he had some drop issues, but I think he's going to be another heavily targeted player in that Pittsburgh Steelers offense who has been throwing for over 600 pass attempts in both of Ben's last 2 previous healthy seasons. I don't know how much juice he still has left in that arm, so let's see how much of that stuff's going to be downfield. But I do like Johnson quite a bit there. Going past him, there are 3 receivers that I can have on all of my teams and be very happy with, and I can get them relatively late. Brandon Cooks, Tyler Boyd, and Antonio Brown. If I stack up the other positions and those are the receivers I come away with at good values, because these are guys you're looking at like round 7, 8, 9 or later. Those 3 players I think are in positions that those offenses in terms of Cincinnati and Houston are going to be positions where they need to throw quite a bit. Brandon Cooks has been a 110 target guy for 4 different teams. So now him over in Houston, I understand it's not be Sean Watson to be Tyrod Taylor. But the running back situation is going to be a little bit different. They still need to produce offense in some regard. Brandon Cooks is very talented. He has showcased he's got that for very different systems. I like him quite a bit. Tyler Boyd, I understand before with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd underneath, I think is going to be a PPR monster. I think you're going to give him a lot later, and he's going to have a point to catch like 5 balls a week and just any sort of yardage and touchdowns he has on that. I like quite a bit. And Antonio Brown, when he was added to this Tampa Bay offense, it showcased why they were really, the Super Bowl winners. He had only 1 less target over the last, after week 8 or so, back when he played with Evans and Godwin, only 1 target behind Mike Evans to lead that team in targets over the last few weeks. He was actually the most targeted guy in the red zone as well. I really like Antonio Brown to still be very exciting a player. I understood he had that little scuffle in training camp with our team, but he didn't get any sort of suspension for that. He didn't get any sort of, reprimandation. Antonio Brown, I think, is a player that needs to be on your roster. I think he's an excellent pick in those 7, 8, 9 sort of range. I love him quite a bit.
Yeah, a guy I've tried to get in drafts this year is Jalen Waddle because he brings plenty of upside and he's got that chemistry with Tua.
Yeah, I think I need to move Waddle up a little bit because I agree. I really think that Tua is being underestimated for 2 things. The offense has not been as good in terms of wide receiver sort of strength. And you add Will Fuller and you add Waddle. I think that's something to really, hang your hat on there. And you also have the ability to be 1 more year removed from that very devastating hip injury. He had some necrosis there, and it was just like, okay, what's going on with the tissue? This is an injury at one point was ending people's careers, and now it's another year removed from that, and he seems to be getting stronger and better at what he's trying to do. I do like Waddle. I do like Tua. I think this Dolphins offense is a lot better than people are giving it credit to. Between Fuller, who is suspended for week 1, it's got to be remembered on that one. Between him, Parker, who's, he's still hanging around, Waddle, the exciting rookie, and then you go and add Gesicki and Myles Gaskin. I think Miami, it's not hard to say. I think they have the second best offense in that division, but they have, I think, a very solid offense in that conference. I do like what Miami's bringing to the table for sure.
Do you believe the Dolphins are really actively looking at this, Sean, or
no? I don't believe so.
They're doing their due diligence in case they could make a fair offer.
Over on the Gridiron Rings redraft show, my co-host Jeff DiMatteo and I were talking about this, and the price that they were asking for Deshaun Watson, Houston, 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks and 3 second. It was a combination of 5 picks of those 2 rounds. That's an extremely high price to pay. I think that was just someone from Deshaun Watson's camp or the Houston Texans talking about that. I don't think Miami isn't interested in that. I do think they're fine and happy with the team they currently going to roll out there for 2021.
I'm just saying, if Deshaun Watson doesn't get suspended, I think I would do that deal in a half second.
It's a very tough price, and then you're basically saying
I don't think it's a tough price with Deshaun Watson. I mean, how many quarterbacks would you, if healthy, would you take over Deshaun right now? Maybe Mahomes, Josh Allen.
In terms of just like overall like football standards,
Yeah. How many would you take over Deshaun right now? Like Mahomes, Allen.
Allen, Jackson, and Murray, probably.
No, I think I take Deshaun over Lamar. Watson's a way better passer.
He's a better passer, but Jackson does things that makes the one thing that Jackson has done is really broke the NFL, right? And I don't think he's a bad passer. He went and led the NFL in touchdown passes 2 seasons ago. So he's not a bad passer. It's just the offensive system doesn't need him to pass. And they also didn't need to pass in 2020. They held opposing offenses to under 21 points around 10 times throughout the entire season. There was no need for that Greg Roman offense to really step on the gas. It was just a matter of them trying to beat the clock and finish out games and just be run heavy, use their very good defense to beat you. Lamar Jackson's a very talented player. The problem with Deshaun Watson is also the off-field allegations. So it's going to be.
I mean, I'm just saying, if he isn't suspended.
Yeah, if he's not, I think he's a top 5 quarterback. That's not even including fantasy. That's just top 5, like NFL talent plus age plus what you can have for the future. Because, like, yes, Aaron Rodgers is very good, but he's 38 and he knows he's going to be playing. Tom Brady has been excellent, but he's 44. Like, there's very good players. Justin Herbert is in this group as well with him being young. Dak Prescott, I love quite a bit as well. But no, I think he'd be probably in the top 5 for me. It's just a matter of how much does the Dolphins want to buy into a very murky situation with his off-field stuff, and 3 first-round picks in 2 seconds. That is a very high price. You're really saying your future, because you already had, there was a tank for Tua. There was a whole idea was we're going to make our team structure around this quarterback. And I think it's very, inappropriate to go out and say, okay, Tua's no longer our guy, because Dwayne Haskins, who doesn't really have a job anymore. He's a backup somewhere, I believe. I think he's with Pittsburgh now.
If they haven't released him.
Yeah, they haven't released him. We might find out tomorrow. But Dwayne Haskins is starting more NFL games than Tua Tagovailoa. So Tua still has a lot of time to show what he can do, because he only has 9 NFL starts, and he's mixed in here and there with Fitzpatrick last year. I really want to see what Tua can do in a full season with as much, close to being healthy or fully healthy as he can be, with a better offense that he did in 2020. I think this is a better team. This Dolphins team is very good, and I'd like to see what he can do. I think that's just a lot to pay for Deshaun. I understand there's teams that would love to have him, but I don't think Miami's going to pay that price.
I think I would if Deshaun, even if Deshaun missed this year, I think I would pay that price. I think I would consider paying that price.
If it wasn't like another team in Florida, so let's say Brady retires next year and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would like to go and get Deshaun Watson, that's a different story. But for Miami, I think still with a young player in Tua, I think it's too easy to, to say, yes, you'd pay that price. But I think it's too early to pull the ripcord and say, all right, we're out on Tua and we'll move over to Deshaun. But if you're a team that is in need of a quarterback, and Tampa Bay has a lot of the other pieces, if Brady were to retire, if he goes and it's just, hey, we need a guy to step in, Deshaun Watson to Tampa Bay would be a much better fit, I think, than for the Miami Dolphins to go out and acquire him for sure.
I'm just saying if the Dolphins got Deshaun Watson, I think they're not just a favorite in the AFC East, they're a Super Bowl contender.
Again, I do think he's very good. I would like to just see what Tua can do, because it's not like we're going from a real backup player style guy or journeyman. We're not going from like Ryan Fitzpatrick or Andy Dalton, because Tua, again, is still young. And with young players, there's really, Josh Allen we were looking at, before last season that, people thought he couldn't throw properly. He wasn't accurate enough. He was never going to really rise to any sort of potential. And then he goes out and has this absolutely monstrous 2020. And everyone's saying we're trying to find a guy who can step up out of nowhere and be a great player like Justin Herbert was last year. Tua is probably at one of the, really forefront for those guys outside of the rookies, just because we're trying to write them off so much because of what we've seen already instead of seeing what we can have potentially in the future.
What about tight ends?
So tight end, obviously, Jonnu Smith, I've been saying, like I said, if you can't get any of the first six, because the first six are the best guys, like, bar none. Jonnu Smith is my tight end 7, but again, he's nowhere in terms of close to those first six guys. It's not like, TJ Hawkinson goes pick 50 and Jonnu Smith's pick 52. No, Jonnu Smith is way past those guys. We're talking about like in the 80s and stuff like that. Other than him, it's tough because Robert Tonyan, with Green Bay, it's going to be another situation. They're the only team last year that had 3 offensive skill position players to have double-digit touchdowns between him, Aaron Jones, and Devontae Adams, all scoring 10 touchdowns or more, which is very good to go with that, very good red zone offense that Green Bay has had over the last 2 seasons. I think Evan Ingram is being a little bit underrated. He had the targets, he had the receptions, he had the yards. He just didn't have the touchdowns. He only scored 1 touchdown last year. There was a very few points between him, who was finished as a tight end 15 in total points, to the tight end 8. It was around like 12 points or so. It was very close. It was a very tight race. He could have been much better than he was. I think he's getting a little underrated. Past those guys, it was Irv Smith. Unfortunately, now Irv Smith is getting meniscus surgery. So there's no real guarantee as to when we're going to see Irv Smith. He is going to play football this year. I just don't know if it's going to be week 1, week 4, week whatever. So he was a guy alongside Jonnu Smith that was in my top 8. He's now my tight end 16. So if you want a late round flyer and you can throw him into an IR spot, or you just want to be fine staying on the bench. Otherwise, Irv Smith was that guy. Past those guys, Gerald Everett over in Seattle. That's a Seattle offense that has liked using their tight ends. It's just been a matter of those tight ends have gotten hurt. Jimmy Graham, we've seen him do after New Orleans. We didn't think he'd be anything. Then he goes to Seattle and plays pretty good football. Greg Olsen has had a top 12 finish in the past few years. Seattle's a good offense. Russ Wilson's a good quarterback. They changed offensive coordinators because it wasn't working last year. If Gerald Everett moves into Seattle and is used properly, currently I have him as my tight end, 19 in terms of ranks. I think he could possibly shoot up the board really quickly if he performs pretty well over there in Seattle.
And plus, it's not like, can the Seahawks actually get away from this 15th century run the ball?
Well, they got rid of Schottenheimer. They do have a new offensive coordinator, and that was.
And now he's in Jackson. And now he's in Jacksonville. Oh yes. No!
So Shane Waldron is now.
Yeah, the Jags got all the Seahawks ex-offensive coordinators because we got Daryl Bevell.
Yeah, so you have Shane Waldron comes over from the LA Rams.
Wait, where is Schottenheimer? Let me see. Now you got me thinking.
I believe Ron Schottenheimer is now over. He's like a passing game coordinator, or he is with the Jaguars in some respect. It's
passing game coordinator.
So who knows? Because he wasn't really a passing game guy over in Seattle. It was run on first down, run on second down, and then let's see what happens on third down. So unfortunately, that is what's going on over in Jacksonville, which is, it starts with the coaching staff. I'm not very optimistic in this coaching staff in Jacksonville. So that kind of leads to my idea with some of these players, but it's just going to be a matter of how confident can you really be in this whole top to bottom system. But that's good for Seattle because them moving off from Schottenheimer helps them because they were a very predictable offense last year and they struggled in the second half. They had a very turbo fire first half. Russell Wilson, especially, he was on an MVP type pace. He was on a breaking Peyton Manning touchdown pace. And then everything kind of fell off the tracks in that second half.
Yeah, I can remember the first game against the Rams where LA looked like they were a Ferrari and the Seahawks looked like they were stuck in the mud.
Yeah, and just in terms of fantasy points, so between weeks 1 and 9, Russell Wilson last year, he was averaging 34 fantasy points a game.
I don't care how good y'all. No quarterback's going to keep up that stat.
And then over the last 8 games, he was averaging under 22. So he was averaging 20 fantasy points. So you go from 34 to 20. He was on fire. He had 28 touchdowns between weeks 1 and 9, and then between weeks 10 and 17, only 12. You know, it,
I would have taken 20. I would have taken 23 and 23.
yeah, if you could have just split the difference, but it's a week to week fantasy game. So no matter how good Russell Wilson was between weeks 1 and 9, down the stretch and into your fantasy playoffs, Russell Wilson was a detriment to you. A lot of the Seahawks were. That whole team really struggled in the second half. So it's going to
be Russell and DK Metcalf on. In fact, Russell, I couldn't figure out which quarterback to play between Russ and Justin Herbert. I'm like, if I play Russ, he poops his pants, and then the next week I play Herbert and he sucks, and Russ throws for 380 and 4 scores. I'm like, why the heck do I ever play these quarterbacks? Actually, you know what? I don't think I think it was. I don't think it was Russ. It wasn't Russ because it was Kyler and Justin Herbert. So sorry. Yeah, Russ went one pick in front of me, of course. Yeah, but it was Kyler and Justin Herbert last year. My apologies.
It's all good. And I said, listen, there's going to be better and, and worse weeks for quarterbacks. You're trying to find consistency. It's a position that you're really trying to hone in and say, okay, this is, my week to week starter. There's no issues. There's no real concerns. So it's going to be a question of, what can it be, real consistent sort of basis in terms of points for your, in your lineup, because, if you're going to go out and take a high profile QB, if you're going to go and have Mahomes or, Prescott or Jackson or Allen, you want those guys to have 20 something points every single week. So there's supposed to be positional advantages for you. So if they don't really come out and do so, that's really when it all starts trying to fall apart for your team. You just really want to have consistent, good fantasy production in your lineup and trying to find advantages where you can.
Yep. That's why you've got to have like people at every position. You can't be weak at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and have a quality tight end. Otherwise, you won't be anyone near the fantasy playoffs. I don't care if you're the waiver king, queen, or the trade guru.
Yeah, it's really, if you're weaker at some spots, because you're in your drafts, like if you go out and take a quarterback early or a tight end early, I wouldn't usually go, both of them. If you're taking high profile ones, it's a different story. You just got to nail it. Over the last 2 seasons, half of the top 12 for both tight ends in 2019 and 2020 have not produced well and have busted. So it's kind of a coin flip. That's why, I have no problem waiting and taking my shots with other guys. Currently this year has been Jonnu Smith for me personally, but those top 6 seem very safe and they seem very good, players. Kyle Pitts might be the one that's a little bit more volatile because he is the rookie. But other than that, you're trying to find real positional advantages, whether that be at quarterback, whether it be at tight end, running back, receiver. Try and find the best way to get points in your lineup, just so you know that in your leagues, whatever point total you have to hit on a week-to-week basis, let's say on average 120 points is, the scoring threshold you need to hit. How do you hit that regard? Whether it's your quarterbacks, running backs, in your flex, tight end, whatever it may be, try and hit whatever threshold you need to do just to be successful every week, because that's really what you're trying to do, trying to get points in your lineup.
Yeah, and guess what happens if you get the most points? You get the dub.
Yeah,
and that'll make any week happy.
That's what you're trying to do. Anytime you can try and get those wins is what you're trying to really pick up on a week-to-week basis. It's like, between the waiver wire, trying to do, off the grid time stuff. That's actually what, show we're going to be doing on ratings, trying to see players that aren't going to be, in your, the top 5 sort of guys. Like whenever we're going to talk about Mahomes on that show, we're going to talk about guys who are in your flex or guys pushing into the top 12 or out of the top 12 to try and help roster decisions. That's the real thing. Making the best roster moves for that week is what's going to help you win a lot more fantasy games.
So thanks for hopping on, man. We wish you all the best. And in case you're wondering, there have only been 2 picks in our draft. One was my pick of TJ Hudson. The other one was Tyler Lockett. So it's not like we're missing much.
I got a few slow drafts going all at the same time. So, hey, it's fine by me. I'm not a very impatient person. I'm fine if it goes a few days. Listen, I'm happy. We got to round 4 in day 1. That's kind of a badge of honor. Some slow drafts, you're barely getting out of the first round. So I'm totally fine with how that draft is turning out so far.
Hey, the fact that we could announce a live pick, I felt like Roger Goodell for a minute.
Listen, it's all good with me, buddy.
I mean, the fact that, I mean, we're having like live draft picks on the show. So thanks for hopping on. We wish you the best. Please subscribe, like when you find this episode. And before we sign off, thoughts and prayers with everybody in Louisiana. I've got a friend in Houma who evacuated, and hopefully everybody, thoughts and prayers are with you in Louisiana. We wish you all the best dealing with the after effects of Hurricane Ida.
Yes, for sure. That's a very good sentiment. I completely agree with you.
As someone who's lives in a hurricane-prone area of Florida, we don't like hurricanes
No,
when they hit anywhere.
trust me, I agree. We had a bad storm come up here, the other day in New York,
Freddie,
and
yeah, Fred.
yeah, it's trust me, nothing compared to Ida. Listen, I really anyone who's down there, I wish really the best. I hope everything comes out great. And it's I'm seeing all the devastation, the people without power. I just hope everyone's safe and healthy, and everything can get cleaned up and taken care of as quickly as possible. I really appreciate.
Yes, then we can get the Saints Packers. Then we can get the Packers Saints next weekend.
Yes, we're looking. Trust me, I'm looking forward to football. People first, football second. But I completely agree with you. I'm very much looking forward to the start of the 2021 NFL season for sure.
What is it? What is it? Faith, family, and football in the South.
I, I listen. I'm a northern guy, so it's a little bit. It might be a little bit different up here, but I can definitely appreciate the sentiment for sure.